According to his most recent statements, Russian President Vladimir Putin is preparing for a much longer and more intense war in Ukraine.
During a speech to his nation, he announced that he would be drafting up to 300,000 military reservists. Putin also warned that Western countries, he said, needed to stay out of the conflict because Moscow will use all means at their disposal to protect Russia.
For more on this, let's bring in CBS News reporter Mary Ilyushina. She joins us from Riga in Latvia. Mary, great to connect with you. What do you make of the announcement, this partial mobilization? And in what ways is this an admission for the first time from the Russian president that the effort in Ukraine is not going according to plan?
Good afternoon. Yeah, that's definitely an admission we haven't heard before because, the narrative has been around the entire campaign that only professional soldiers are going to participate in it and that they're going to win and that everything is going really well. And the majority of Russian public was sold this idea that this is a very, very limited targeted operation. Now everything changes around that narrative because, as you've said, 300,000 people are being recruited. That's almost double of what Russia went into this campaign because Western intelligence estimated to be around 150,000 people back in February. So now it's way more. But there's a lot of concern about how motivated, how trained this force is because they are they are reservists. They are, have some military experience, but they haven't fought in a long time.
Tell us how this address is being viewed in Russia, Mary.
Well, there's quite a bit of panic because, people have been fearing this for a long time because still, even though the Kremlin has been saying everything is going well, there were a lot of reports that Russians are suffering huge losses, and there's not enough equipment for the forces that are fighting there right now. And we've seen sort of what people have been fearing in February and March. They're trying to flee the country. They're buying up all the direct tickets to the countries that are still visa-free and available to Russians. And there's video emerging of panic at the borders, people fleeing to Mongolia and Finland. So there's quite a bit of chaos going on.
And during his speech, President Putin made what's being described as a veiled threat. President Biden mentioned this when addressing the UN General Assembly to use weapons of mass destruction. We have been reporting, and you and others who have good contacts in Ukraine have been showing that Ukrainians have been making gains as Russia has lost ground. So what do you make of that threat? Is it proof that the Russian president is on the back foot?
Well, he's been mentioning, sort of alluding to nuclear arsenal that Russia has several times. This, I think, is the most sort of harsh indication that, he's threatening, he is ratcheting up his rhetoric, but he has been mentioning that he's willing to go sort of all out in this war, and there's not going to be a sign of backing down. But again, we should probably look at it from the standpoint of how Kremlin has been talking about this war, is that they're constantly ratcheting up. They're saying, we won't stop until our old goals are met. And, for Putin to say right now and admit that, yes, I didn't manage to take the entire Ukraine, so we're just going to, do this referendums that they've announced a couple of days ago, and that'll be it. That would be an admission of weakness, and he's not known for that. Whether, I think everybody hopes, and Russians also hope as well, that he's not going to use and resort to that, but he's definitely trying to show Ukraine and test Ukraine whether it's going to negotiate in any way or tries to back down.
Major news on so many fronts today. Mary Ilyushina, thank you.